Hey everybody, I am Dr. Amy Nelson, and oh my gosh, Cyclospora. Let's talk about it. Oh, there is a parasite from lettuce and berries that creates watery diarrhea, and people here in Texas have been plagued by this. And so today I thought we would talk about it. We would talk about it all. So, I study the digestive system. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I got my start at the IBS Treatment Center in Santa Monica. And so we've learned a lot about how to support a healthy microbiome and to support healing in the bowel. And I know that if you've contracted this, you're going to get extreme watery diarrhea. And do know that it is okay to go to urgent care and get fluids. A lot of times when you're under this acute watery diarrhea, you could get quite dehydrated. And here in Texas, it's already hot and all of it. And so if you're just not drinking enough water, or even just having diarrhea, will create a lot of electrolyte imbalance. And so if you kind of want to stay away from that, of course, this is one of my favorite, electrolytes. It's really stout. It doesn't have a lot of sugar to it. I don't like electrolytes that are sugary. You usually find that quite a bit when you go out and try to find an over-the-counter electrolyte. It usually has some sort of taste favorability to it, which involves sugary substances. I don't like a lot of dyes. I don't like food additives. I just want plain Jane electrolytes in very good stout dosages. And so Trace Minerals has a good one. The other one that I probably use a lot of is that Keto Synergy by Designs for Health. Those are some of my favorites. So don't skimp on the electrolytes when you have diarrhea. Food-based electrolytes would be, of course, pink salt. There's that. And then also like coconut water. So coconut water, I don't like it, but I usually put it in with like some lemon, or I'll just stick it in with water, and drink it like water. So that's very, very important, because that's the number one problem, is that you're going to be dumping all these electrolytes. You get very, very dehydrated. All that kind of stuff. Now, do know that you know you, and you're going to seek treatment when you need to. So even though this is a parasitic microbe, it can create some problems in the bowel with secondary infection, and so you would need an antibiotic, and that's for you and your provider to figure out. But this is just in the self-limiting category. Most people are just going to fight it off themselves. They're going to have it's going to be self-limiting and no problem at all. So I kind of wanted to address people in that situation, like what probiotic would I use? Well, my favorite, this is Megaspore. Megaspore at even like 2 capsules twice a day. In probably an acute diarrhea phase, it would even be like 2 capsules 3 times a day. Can you take too much probiotic? Not with acute diarrhea. You're basically like really causing a lot of trouble for the ecosystem in there, and you are actually behind with good probiotics. These Bacillus line probiotics are really hardy, and they can set up well. They can go up against really big overgrowths of infectious things in the bowel. So they're studied quite a bit. There's a lot of evidence-based medicine against, even Megaspore has even been studied against C. difficile infection. And so it's a probiotic that is very useful for helping restabilize the microbiome in the bowel. So that wouldn't be a bad option. I would definitely work with that one. Second would be something like this. This is Z-Binder from Orthomolecular. So a Z-Binder is just bunch of binders. So that would be like zeolite clay, activated charcoal, shilajit, and fulvic acid. That's the label on here. Activated charcoal, you've heard of that. So these are things that are going to bind up endotoxins. So remember, as microbiome dies in the bowel, or even this Cyclospora, if you kill it off, or the damage that it's causing in the bowel is going to create a lot of endotoxin. And those endotoxins create a lot of problems. That's part of the symptom issue, is the endotoxin pathway. So things like zeolite clay and activated charcoal are really good at binding up that inflammatory intermediate, but also like the endotoxin overload that's going on with that infection. And how much can you take? Well, gosh, you could take 1 to 2 capsules every couple hours. drink enough water. People are going to be like, does it cause constipation? Only if you didn't drink water and you only drank, I don't know, sparkling mineral water or something, you know. So if you dehydrate, then yeah, it'll be a problem for you. But if you are drinking 2-3 liters of water with a bunch of electrolytes, you're going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You're probably just, you know, actually get out of the acute diarrhea phase. It likes to be by itself. You don't want to have, you want to take it away from things. You don't want to take it with medication, of course. You don't want to take it with food, right? So you want to take it on its own. And so that means like you, on an empty stomach, you're going to take it. It probably takes about 20 to 30 minutes for it to exit the stomach. And then you just kind of, you know, let it get further south in your digestive system. So maybe you don't take something around 30 minutes of taking this, right? So empty stomach, just making sure that you know, a good hour or two after your meal would be enough to get you an empty stomach. So binders are going to be key because that's going to help you with directly decreasing that inflammatory situation. Now, what can help you reduce inflammation in the bowel? And that's something like this. This is an immunoglobulin therapy. So here we have a serum-derived IgG protein isolate. And these are things that you give in acute colitis flares. So SBI Protect is marketed for extreme bowel inflammation. Probably it's one of the highest dosages on the market, so I use it quite a bit. Capsule-wise, it's an easy 2 capsules twice a day. It does come in a powder, so if you do need to increase it, you definitely can, you know, do like 2 to 3 scoops a day if it's really bad. So, and then of course, like these are capsules, which are just, you know, easier to take, but definitely the powder's a little bit better because, you know, it's an absorbability type thing. So, that's what I would do if I contracted the Cyclospora. It's definitely important to get some probiotics in there. Well, first off, it's important to hydrate. Hydrate is really important with acute diarrhea. You want to make sure you have good electrolytes coming in because that's the big problem with having acute diarrhea is that. Second would be to make sure you've got a really good probiotic, one that's very stout. The Bacillus lines are probably the best. It's Megaspore is probably the one that I would use. Binders, like we mentioned, Z-Binder's my favorite because I use it a ton, but activated charcoal, bentonite clay, zeolite clay, Shilajit, humic acid, stuff like that. And then things to reduce the bowel inflammation. My favorite thing are the serum-derived immunoglobulins. That'll help you, right? And then, of course, if that's not, it's okay to go get a treatment for the bowel. Go just, see your urgent care, and they might get you on an antibiotic of some sort, and that is okay. But most of the time, people just kind of, kick this thing on their own and are fine. But not always. So that's the deal. So, yeah, that's annoying, huh? Now, with the digestive system, I wanted to bring up that when I worked irritable bowel, and especially at the IBS treatment center, we would always have the not well since kind of idea. So I would listen to a lot of people's stories who had chronic irritable bowel, and it would be common for somebody to say, hey, look, I went on vacation, or I got sick with something, or something like this, Cyclospora. There would be this problem, right, that would happen, and then for months and maybe years later, somebody was not well since that thing, right? So I always talked about this idea of like your GI system kind of dealing with you, and you can have a lot of inflammation in the bowel and not have symptoms, unfortunately. So the idea of not well since means that here's your cutoff. You were right here with your inflammation. You were handling stuff. Were you healthy? I wouldn't call it that. Were you thriving? I wouldn't call it that either. And then here we've got this infection, boom, and then we are having irritable bowel, not well since. It's kind of like when you study the evolution of that, it's like, yes, there's like a straw that breaks the camel's back, and maybe the body just doesn't go back into handling this type of subacute inflammation that's not in your realm of awareness, right? Now, that's something that's important to build that healthy habit, because so many times you do hear the story of, I eat really healthy, right? And you ask what that means. And some people do, like, they really, they don't eat out a lot. They make their own food. They eat a lot of like colorful vegetables. They're taking in a lot of antioxidants. They have really high quality proteins. They are really mindful of their metabolism. We talk about proteins, fats, and fibers. You need all three of those as a macronutrient balance in the diet. Not taking in a lot of inflammatory foods. They're minimizing a lot of processed foods. Like, that's healthy, right? That's a healthy diet. A lot of times people might have this thing where they think they're eating healthy, but really there's probably a lot of processed foods going in. Maybe they eat out a little too often. They're intaking a lot of refined sugars. They're intaking a lot of alcohol. They're taking in a lot of grain and their balance of the proteins, fats, and fiber are way off. And I get what they're saying, because they mean like, well, I'm not at McDonald's every day and I don't have like ice cream bars every night, or like there's some ideas as to their habits that they're trying to explain, but I don't know that they fully have appreciated a healthy diet. And that's what you help somebody figure out. That's why doing food sensitivity panels are really great, studying as many immunoglobulins as you can. Right now there's 4 immunoglobulins that you can study. I really love working that up so that we can kind of get a piece of paper in front of us that shows the inflammatory foods. And then we can say, let's maximize these non-inflammatory foods, and we're going to minimize or eliminate for a while these inflammatory foods, and we can help build this nutrition for you. Because first things first with nutrition, don't eat inflammatory foods. And that's super important. Then you go into the metabolic kind of idea of proteins, fats, and fibers, right? But the problem is a lot of times people think they're eating, let's say, we'll call it low carb, but they're going to be overdoing it with dairy. Dairy is one of the top inflammatory foods. So you find that all the time. People are just like overeating a food in the idea that they're trying to eliminate carbs, but it's creating a lot of inflammation. And then it's really confusing for people, because they're like, well, I thought I was eating healthy. And you're like, well, you kind of were, but you have to really understand nutrition from a couple different angles. And that's really important. And even before that, we talk about this, like, I really want to make sure that somebody has a positive relationship with food. And I want to understand their food habits, and I want to understand if they have like a low-key disordered eating. I want to understand that first, because before I go making rules about food or changes with food or whatever, I got to know what somebody's like habit with food is and what their relationship with it is, and if they're at peace with it, or if they, if I'm contributing to an eating disorder, I have to kind of know that before going into making recommendations. And I think that's really important in nutrition, to know that. First thing, don't give somebody an eating disorder. Don't contribute to an eating disorder. Second, is the food inflammatory? If so, we don't eat it. We do something different. We change it up. Third, understanding the metabolics behind somebody's ratios of proteins, fats, and fibers. So, are they insulin resistant? What is the cholesterol doing? How much do they exercise? These kind of things, right? So, a lot goes into nutrition, right? And you can help somebody work that out. So there's that. Let's go back to the topic of not well since. Well, yes. So then if I have a flora disruption that's never gone back to its original starting point, that could happen. So these parasitic infections could really throw things off and just create imbalance in there, so that you could have a subsequent bacteria overgrowth or a yeast overgrowth or something like that takes hold. So that's common. So if somebody doesn't really return back to a baseline of normal, then you would want to work them up. You'd work up the microbiome. My favorite studies are PCR studies on the stool. And then you would work up a food sensitivity panel to see where they were at in inflammation, before they kind of got into the weeds with a acute parasitic diarrhea. So I hope this helps, and watch out there. Hopefully we get out of the weeds soon with all of this, and I know it's lettuce season and kind of ruined it for us. But you know what? Onward and upward. We'll get through this, and just take care of yourself. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me for this little bit. Again, next week we'll do another topic. Sign up for my newsletter. I just wrote an article about the mitochondria, so I enjoy writing those. So I hope you enjoy reading those. So yeah, visit my website if you have any other questions. Bye-bye.